We're the largest branch of 22 in California. And we've got over 230, actually 232, because somebody else just joined today. So we're growing even despite the pandemic. And that's great news for the 16 authors that are here. This meeting is something we do once a year. Jeanne has been doing it for a number of years. It's the second year in a row that we have had to do it via Zoom. This year we will not have to. We'll be able to do this and celebrate in person. You'll be able to sign and meet and greet all the members and sign your books and have them buy them on the spot. But for now, I am going to turn the meeting over to your host, Jeanne Sloan, to introduce the authors, and we'll take it from there. Jeanne Sloan is our MC and author for Author Launch. Pronounced Jeanne, not Jean, not Gina. It is Jeanne Sloan. She is the author of 4 historical novels about amazing women in the 40s who have been left out of history. Jeanne is the owner of ESL Publishing and has published many textbooks for second language learners. She has been a board member for 13 years and chair of Author Launch for 10 years. Jeanne has received the Jack London Award for service for her club. Without further ado, here is your MC for the afternoon, Jeanne Sloan.
Excellent, Sean. Thank you. Welcome, Joan Goodreau. Joan's poems, stories, and articles have appeared in numerous periodicals and anthologies in North America. Her plays have appeared at local festivals. A pushcart nominee, she has been awarded a Hedgebrook Writing Residency. Joan will read a passage from her book, Where to Next? Strangers Together, How My Son's Autism Changed My Life, and Another Secret Shared.
Thank you for this opportunity. And I will be reading from Where to Next. This first section tells about our family's life on the autism spectrum. And the first poem that I'm going to be reading to you is about my son, Ian, who has grown up, and our challenges now that we face in Northern California. Mass. Evacuate again, my autistic son and me. Not the paradise fire this time. Another fire chases us, and Corona follows us wherever we go. I see you through a mask of smoke, the outlines of your life blurred, hazy. Remember you so small, a dark mystery I could not solve. I see you in a mask of cloth, can't see you grin or hear your whispered words. Remember you so small, before you had sounds or smiles. We carry on our way like always, but still hide smiles and muffled words behind our masks. Wander through smoke, wonder where to next. My next poem is from the section of my book called Heart Murmurs. Senior online dating. Bald was the color of my true love's hair. Before calling, he Googled my name to find lies I had made up online. Our first date was to the Elks Club for flu vaccine, then to his yoga class with a 2-for-1 free trial. At coffee, he blamed his ex, who never worked because she was of that age so long ago, where her only job was to raise children, who blamed her for no ambition. He scrubbed my patio with bleach to kill the moss. he said would freeze in winter and cause my friends to slip and sue me. Advised exercise for my own good and bangs to frame my face. A knock at my door, and I run to my bedroom closet like hide and seek when we were young. Another knock. Are you in there? Silent. I close my eyes and hold my breath, afraid I will be found, or worse, left alone in my hiding place. My last poem is called Nesting Dolls. Nesting dolls, great-grandmother, grandma, mother, daughter, generational nesting rests inside each other until we open the smallest one and begin again. I become the mother of my mother, the daughter of my daughter. The wheel reverses. Adult shrinks to child. Blossom wilts to seed. Moth shrivels to chrysalis. Babushka holds the egg. Her grandson paints, both careful not to break the shell that holds the life inside. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Joan. Welcome, Natasha Yim. Natasha has published 7 picture books and written for children's magazines, Highlights for Children, Appleseeds, Faces, and Muse, as well as various adult magazines. Her 2-book projects with Disney Pixar are based on upcoming Pixar movies. They will be released in February and May of this year. And congratulations, Natasha, on that accomplishment. She will show and talk about her children's picture book, Luna's Yum Yum Dim Sum. Love the title.
Thank you, Jeannie. Thanks so much for doing this again. So picture books are not picture books without the illustration. So I'm going to share my screen real quick so you can also see the illustrations as I read.
Oh, wonderful.
So Luna's Yum Yum Dim Sum is published by Charlesbridge Publishing, and the wonderful illustrator is Violet Kim. It's Luna's birthday. Mama and Baba are taking Luna and her brothers to a dim sum restaurant for a special birthday lunch. The restaurant is a noisy, busy place. Voices chatter, chatter, buzz, buzz. Chopsticks click, clickety. Oops, sorry. I just got too... Okay. Voices chatter, chatter, buzz, buzz. Chopsticks click, clickety, clack. Servers in white tunic with... Sorry, my page is off here. Servers in white tunics push carts filled with plates and bamboo baskets of dim sum. Warm smells of dumplings, buns, and sweet desserts tickle Luna's nose. What would you like? Asked Baba. Pork buns, cries Luna. 2 baskets, please, says Kai, her big brother. We love pork buns, says little brother Benji. Baba waves to the dim sum server. He orders 2 baskets of ta siu bao. 3 pork buns in each basket, Luna says. 2 for me, 2 for Kai, and 2 for Luna, cries Benji. Kai takes a pork bun. Benji takes a pork bun. Yum, yum, dim sum, cries Luna. She grabs a pork bun. Oh no! Splat! Luna takes another bun. That's all you get, says Kai. 2 for me, 2 for Kai, and 1 for Luna, Benji exclaims. It's my birthday. I can have just 1, Luna wails. But there are only 2 buns left, says Kai. Who gets them? Asked Benji. The oldest gets another bun, declares Kai. Mama tells us to always respect our elders, and older kids should take care of younger kids, says Benji. So I get another bun. But I'm the birthday girl. Kai, Luna, and Benji glare at one another. It wouldn't be fair for one person to be left out, Luna says finally. Let's cut each half in half. Half for each of us, says Benji. Who gets the extra? Well, the tallest person needs more food, says Kai, and the shortest person needs more food to grow taller, says Benji. But it's my birthday, insists Luna. How about we cut the half in half, says Kai. But that would be 2 pieces for 3 people. We'd be right back where we started, exclaimed Luna in dismay. I know, says Kai. Let's go by the animals of the lunar calendar. I'm a rat. That's the first animal on the calendar, so I should get the extra. But I'm a dragon, says Benji, puffing his chest. I'm bigger than a rat. I can stomp on a rat anytime. Tigers are the bravest, says Luna. Kai, Luna, and Benji stare at the fluffy, delicious half bun. How about this, Luna says. Let's divide the half into 3 pieces. That's fair, says Benji. Kai sighs. But the pieces would be so small. Wait, Luna says. Yum yum dim sum. And this is a part of the Charles Bridges storytelling math series. So at the back of the book, there's some information about dim sum, the Chinese zodiac, and also exploring math with your kids.
Oh, that was excellent. And as Chrissy says, it made her hungry. Me too. But it's beautiful. Thank you. Welcome, B.K. Sweeting, or Brittany. She is the author and illustrator of Bubbly by the Sea, a 2021 International Book Award winner. She's a thriller enthusiast, wine connoisseur, and lover of the sea. Learn more at www.bksweeting.com. Brittany will read from her mystery thriller, Pearlized. Is Brittany here?
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, good.
Sorry, having technical difficulties with my camera and my laptop today. But one thing I wanted to read to you real quick is a few things about Pearlized. Pearlized, book 1 of the Pearlized series, which is book 1 of 3, is a character-driven novel that begins with a bone-chilling past that steers the present day into unfathomable depths. It centers on O'Sheen, son of Claire Murphy, who vanished when O'Sheen was coming of age. The point of view focuses on O'Sheen's internal struggles as an adult during the pandemic, but it also stars his friends from childhood who undergo personal growth as well. A nonlinear narrative brings the reader occasionally back to the late 80s with journal entries written by the infamous Pearl Point murder. The setting moves from ice-cold upstate New York to sunlit Florida to the salty shores of California. A dramatic plot with layers of thrilling moments drives this slow burn thriller into a climax of reckoning. Pearlized poses the following questions. Is it bad luck to gift pearls? What happened to Claire Murphy? Is the Pearl Point murder indeed dead? What makes someone become a serial killer? Can new love and fresh trauma coexist? And is blood truly thicker than water? It's only a matter of time until the answers surface. Within deep waters lies deep vengeance. And with that, I would like to read just a short snippet here for you. Murphy, is that you? Logan asked. Hi, Logan, can you get your dad? I can't find my mom. I'm not sure if something happened. O'Sheen said, trembling. He slumped forward to glance out the breakfast nook window, squinting hard as he brought his eyebrows together. He dropped the phone. It recoiled upwards, then down, avoiding the kitchen floor. It swayed leisurely on its cord. "Hi, O'Sheen, it's me, Detective Dawson. What's going on?" a man voiced. O'Sheen pressed his hands up against the glass window on the back door. He tried to make out the sizable disruption on the ice near the snowy shore. "Mom? Mom!" he squealed. Like an air hockey puck, he bounced back and forth between the front and back doors, carelessly stepping over the puddles in a race for his boots back by the foyer. Stumbling to pull them on, he pushed his little feet in and flew back to his kitchen. He threw open the unlocked French double doors that proceed to their wooden conservatory. Bang, bang. O'Sheen repeated the action with the conservatory set of doors. His knees flew high as he trotted through the foot of powdered snow, scanning the area for any sign of his mom, for anyone. The temperature was dropping. The gusts nipped at his lobes, a whirring from the wind scorched his ear canals. Arriving at the shore, he noticed movement with his peripheral vision. To the right of him, a woman, O'Sheen's neighbor, was standing behind a window on the household's double-sash room window. O'Sheen waved his hands at the first glimpse of hope, eager to get his neighbor's attention. She was expressionless as she glared out the window, moving her arms in a scrubbing motion. In return, O'Sheen's brows wrinkled into his little porcelain forehead, and he grit his small, straight teeth together. Little fists formed at the ends of his merino wool sleeves, hands keeping their balled-up shape as he performed a jumping jack motion to get her attention. "Help!" O'Sheen yelled frustratedly at Sandra. Sandra cocked her head to the side interestedly. Short straw hair met her shoulder as she continued staring. Confused now but politely, Sandra brought her hand up, waving slowly back at O'Sheen. He shook his head furiously at her misunderstanding. He desired her attention, but he reserved his energy. O'Sheen wasn't confident in his actions, but he felt in his gut that he had to act fast. Pursuing with caution, he made the first step onto the ice. It gave out under the 110 pounds of weight, cracking instantly. The water from the slosh and splashing was much colder than he had imagined. It would be, but it did not stop him from continuing. Eager for a more stable surface to stand on, he stomped until his boots finally met a promising solid surface. O'Sheen lowered down onto his knees and laid down on his belly to distribute his weight, just as his father had instructed him to do every winter if he ever found himself on thin ice. Beads of sweat developed on his lightly freckled forehead. He pulled himself forward, unhurriedly crawling toward the hole to avoid too much pressure on what he knew was a sensitive floor below him. The rescue act damaged the skin on his hands. He felt a piercing pain from each of his little fingertips as he inched forward. Blood vessels near his skin constricted. O'Sheen approached the hole from a safe distance away. The curious inky liquid was close enough for him to register that it was blood. The only time that O'Sheen had seen this amount of blood was from watching Jaws on VHS. His jaw dropped. He gasped for air, unable to move an inch further. The stillness, the scene, the pounding in his chest, it heightened a fear that he had never known before. The horror distracted his focus from the excruciating pain in his hands and ears. A tear formed at the corner of his eye where he had segmental heterochromia. An island of smoky topaz flourished against the cerulean blue at the bottom of O'Sheen's iris. He fixated on a curious attraction, a finger-painted symbol on the ice. O'Sheen thought to himself that it appeared to be the letter X next to two vertical lines. A gleaming orb demanded...
I'm afraid we're running out of time.
Oh, of course. Well, thank you for having me.
Finish the sentence, though.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. O'Sheen's body lunged forward over the chunks of bloody ice and jagged edges into the piercing polar and murky waters. And thank you so much for having me. And it is available on Amazon.
Great. And we'll have to finish the story by buying your book and reading it. It's sounded quite intriguing. Thank you, Brittany. Welcome, Tommie Whitener. He draws material and ideas from his California upbringing and his long-term interest in things Russian. This is Tommie's second collection of short stories. He also published a historical novel based on his Arkansas grandparents, as well as another novel about couples attending a personal development retreat. Tommie is also a board member of Redwood Writers. Tommie Whitener will read a piece from his short stories titled California Vignettes. Is Tommie appearing?
He's muted. He's muted. Tommie, you're muted.
Make a sign of
There he
something.
goes.
Okay.
Got it now? Am I unmuted?
Okay, good. You
Okay.
are on.
All
Welcome,
right.
Tommie.
So California Vignettes is 12 stories, mainly about Californians like you and I. I have time to read from 4. Inside the tent, Richard undressed and laid down to watch her. Still looking pretty good, he thought as she removed her bra. What, no pajamas? He asked as she started to lie down. Did you take your little blue pill, she said, rolling on her side and reaching a caressing hand across his bare chest. No, he said, I didn't know I was going to need it. When we used to camp, as soon as we had the kids tucked in, we did it every night. You used to say that there was something about camping that made you really horny. Honey, he said, that was a hell of a long time ago. And I didn't need the damn Viagra then either. But okay, I'll go get it. Wait a minute, she said. Maybe you don't have to. Let me see what I can do. Oh, Kathy. Oh, yes. The second is entitled...
We were not expecting this, but it was exciting.
There's more. Birds of a feather. The reason I left Simon is because he's a racist, a stone cold racist motherfucker. Oh yeah, he's always got lots of black people around him, but it's just to disguise how he really feels. Believe me, I know this guy. My shock could not have been greater. My jaw actually dropped and I stood there for long seconds staring at the woman. But Carrie, I finally managed to blurt, that can't be. You and Jessica are both, but I didn't get to finish my sentence because 2 big men in suits and fresh haircuts suddenly appeared, one on either side of her. The Asian one said, Athena, slowly hand my partner the glass and put your hands behind your back. You know the drill. You're under arrest for violation of the restraining orders. The third is from a story entitled Precious Eggs. Come on, Mike, admit it. You know it's hopeless. The last doctor made it pretty clear. I'm not capable. I'm never going to have a child. Okay, I said. We've always known we might have to adopt. That's fine. Let's get started. No, Mike, I don't want to adopt. I want for us to have a baby that has at least half our genes. An adopted child, as much as we might love it, would have none of our genes. I want you to father a child with my sister. What, I exclaimed. Harper would never go for that. It was Harper's idea, Lisa said calmly. Well, I'll be goddamned, I mumbled. Honey, don't you see the logic of it? The baby would have half its genes from you, and because Harper and I are so much alike, a goodly portion of my family's from her. It's a perfect plan. No fucking way, Lisa. It's the stupidest idea I ever heard. Please, Mike, just think about it. Not hardly. What doctor or fertility clinic is going to inseminate Harper with my sperm and then fill out whatever paperwork is required to say you and I are the parents? Mike, she said, as if she were addressing the newest nurse on her floor, we've already spent a fortune on failed embryo implants. We're tapped out. Have you looked at our credit card statements lately? We don't have to do the insemination artificially. And
ending.
And from 2 words. But strain my brain though I did, I just couldn't think of any plausible reason Kathy would want me to go see Donna, except exactly what Kathy said, to get my old flame out of my system. Nevertheless, I started to repeat my objections. No, that's it, she said. This has gone on long enough. You're going to go see her. Donna readily assented when I called to suggest dinner a few days later, a dinner which concluded with us lying next to each other in a hotel room near LAX. Still panting, we both stared at the ceiling until she turned to me and, continuing to show the effects of the several drinks we'd had before and after dinner, said, "Remember when?" she began. I didn't hear the rest of what she said. With just those 2 words, I knew I was among the world's biggest fools. I was still tucking in my shirt as I went through the door, leaving a baffled Donna to figure out what she had done wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Great endings. Welcome, Bruce Koepp. His pen name is Brace Ruben. He is a retired medical professional who is finally embracing a fictional writing career after 40 years of teaching, publishing in journals, seminars, and pathology. He prefers descriptive narratives of the Midwestern culture, the colorful characters, and the psychological interaction of the past and present. Bruce will read a passage from his mystery titled Pitfall.
Thank you, Jeanne. Good afternoon. This main character, Dr. Kevin Michaels, is a forensic pathologist. A scalpel for hire, a second opinion, a lost cause, a dead end. His life is an island with no rescue ships. During a case, a simple word triggers a memory of someone he once knew decades ago when he was a youth counselor for summer. The story begins. Erin Garner was my age, and like me, looking forward to leaving this island Peel Collie and becoming a high school senior. She attended rural high school located 60 miles north in the unincorporated portion of the state where vast forests of Norway pine and occasional honed-out farms existed. But when I first put my eyes on her, she was sitting between 2 other girl counselors. It was first day of orientation, and I could tell she was bored. Her chagrin matched mine as we stood when introduced and regurgitated a mini biography of our lackluster but Christian-worthy lives. At that exact moment, when she finished her story and sat down, I was both out of her league and crazy smitten. Her wavy brown hair was pinned tight to the back of her head. A ropey ponytail chased down the small of her bony back like a fleeting fox. She wore this distracting green plaid headscarf perched on the top of her head like a baker's cover. A drab olive green sweatshirt hung loosely on her narrow shoulders in a valiant attempt to hide her full hips. With her combination of brown rimmed glasses, a cautious hello, and a thin-lipped, polite smile, it became apparent that Erin was like me, unhappy and stranded. During relays against the cabins, our 3-legged race was unbeatable. She ran like the devil. We'd lock arms for the 40-yard dash. The rope knotted around our joined ankles, leaving semi-permanent abrasions. We were always flashing it like a war wound, but I didn't care. Wherever she might be at any moment was where I wanted to be. Erin taught me patience and envy at the same time. At the end of outdoor activities, her skin became the color of copper in the sun, while mine had the elegant tint of boiled hot dogs. She was a natural leader and perpetually positive, always looking at the cup half full. Erin and I became more than co-workers inhabiting a satellite. We were circling a larger globe, and the attraction was overpowering. My heart was weighted to hers. I skedaddle alongside and touch her hand in the flickering campfire beyond the watchful eyes. I had a crazy crush. It was my personal rapture. Even Jesus would have endorsed my actions. Love thy neighbor, girl counselor, with all thy heart. My feeling for her developed an acuity, like having a great mystery revealed. When she took off her glasses, her eyes had a soft tawny hue that teared easily on our last days together. As for me, the campfire smoke from her grubby corduroy jacket and hair lingered like unforgettable perfume. Every kiss, every snuggle, every hug, everything about her usually kept me awake all night. At season's end, we'd clean our cabins with Lysol and soap to rid the rooms of the stench of sweat and dirty clothes. Erin was in my room, lying on the bunk, watching me pack. Her arms were folded in front like a mummy. It was time to say goodbye, and I was not prepared for what was next. I stuffed the remaining week's musty belongings into my duffel. Her sadness tore at my chest as the mood in the room plunged like a deep winter freeze. Tears ran down her cheeks. Who knows what another week might have been? Anyhow, it was safer this way. Behind the door in my cabin, we hugged and kissed one last time. This room felt suddenly old and silent. Do you have my address? She said between sobs. Right here in my wallet, I told her, patting my hind pocket. Call me sometime, anytime. She kissed me and stepped out the back entrance as my parents came through the front door. Erin and I never again connected, except for 2 letters within the first week apart. Her sudden disappearance was not statewide news. Missing person dramas are merely that, dramatic. In my mind, the loon drake still glides gracefully in solitude over the moonlit pond where we once professed momentous choices. What we became was only a cabin door away. I miss that calling for Erin, and it persists, unending, inside out, like an autopsy of my soul. Thank you.
Thank you. I found your descriptions very vivid. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Cynthia Gregory, who is an award-winning author of literary fiction. Her work has been published in The Sun, Glimmer Train, and other notable journals. Her collected short stories were published in 2021 following her book, Journaling as a Sacred Practice, in 2017. Cynthia will read from her new fiction book, What is Possible from Here?
Thank you very much, Jeannie. I never meant to write about the pandemic, but I was teaching a journaling course in early 2020, and the story started to emerge from my journal notes. The section I'm going to read is from a story called Mystic Blue, and it is the capstone of my collection. It's based in the Sonoma Valley. Soon after the news of a global pandemic began to sink in, Marcy's memory went haywire. She had trouble concentrating. She was edgy and ill-tempered. Even though the plague was still far away, it was looming, and she felt a spike of dread. When she told her therapist, Dr. Weiler concluded, PTSD. Of course, Marcy reasoned. This was something big, something powerful, something no one person could take on and win. She reeled herself back, connecting to that same out-of-control threat of panic. On the night of October 8, 2017, fires ignited vast tracts of scrub and manzanitas while communities slept. High winds at Atlas Peak caused a power line to arc, showering tinder dry grass with sparks that became flames, which Diablo winds swept into the air and threw for miles along 2 ridgelines. This was a fire that burned so hot it created its own weather. This was the first of its kind fire that devoured homes and wineries and livestock. This fire burned out of control for days and grew so hot it blistered the paint on responders' SUVs and melted PVC water lines buried underground like roots in Santa Rosa subdevelopments. That early morning, Marcy and Jackson woke in the pre-dawn dark to the smell of smoke. Jackson was on his feet in one motion. Diablo, he said. Turn on the radio, he said. In the dark, Marcy's phone came to life, blaring the alarm of an emergency response drill. But this was no drill. This was a call to action. Smoke and embers choked the air. Ashes rained from the sky. From the porch of the farmhouse, she could clearly see a jagged amber line work its way along the ridge from Hogback Mountain toward the sea. Wind pushed the smoke into the basin of San Francisco Bay, whipping flames and throwing sparks. I have to go, he said. Where to? To the barrel cellar, of course. Of course. I'll call Carlos and have him get a crew out here to turn on the sprinklers and stamp out flying cinders. Maybe they would not have to be evacuated. Maybe, as dwellers of the valley floor, they would be lucky and remain safe from the perilous hillsides. Flames licked up steep terrain lightning fast and could cut you off in a heartbeat. All it took was one tree down across a country road and you were done. Jackson took a thermos of coffee, locked eyes on Marcy from the doorway for a minute, and left. The Mayacamas were consumed. It was dark and difficult to judge distance, but she knew this geography like she knew her own skin. Just when it seemed things could get no worse, the flames swept down a charred slope, jumped the highway, and devoured wide swaths of wild oak, hay barns, outbuildings, and a string of farm labor shacks. The pandemic of 2020 was a similar sort of terror, but on a mind-numbing scale. In a space of 3 years, 2 scourges of biblical dimension landed. The home she tended was more than 100 years old, constructed of hand-hewn redwood and sweet pine. At one end of the 19th century, it hosted pioneers, and in the second decade of another century, it turned sanctuary to all manner of woodland creatures escaping walls of flame. Finally, it became a harbor from waves of deadly infection and morphed into another kind of home altogether. Third week of quarantine. The world became unspun. Pandemic fever dominated the news. It was all too dizzying to fully comprehend. And then came the quarantines of towns, counties, states, and borders. Financial markets tumbled. There were rumors of closing the Golden Gate Bridge. She was in the shower when she remembered the meditation Jack had taught her one fall when the world was still cracked and frayed and COVID-free. At the time, she found it disturbing, even macabre. Now she rested her cheek on the shower's cool tile wall. Now the meditation was a form of succor. They were in her living room. Jack plugged in a Lakota Nation flute and drumming CD into the player. She'd been skeptical about the premise, but relented to Jack's persuasion. Just relax, he said. Close your eyes and belly breathe. Focus on a spot on the bottom of your right foot. Marcy cracked an eye, peering at him to make sure he wasn't playing a trick. He sat, sporting a silvery 5 o'clock shadow, eyes closed, maybe hovering above his zafu, maybe not. Imagine, he instructed quietly, being present in the last year of your life. Let that sink in. What do you notice? After an interval, he continued. Now imagine the last month of your life. What do you notice? He paused for several minutes, just breathing, following a singular image on the inside of his eyelids. Now, he resumed, move toward the last week of your life, then the last day, the last hour. After a space of a long breath, he finished. Now, the last minute. His voice was so soft, he was barely audible. What do you notice? What Marcy noticed was that a space swelled open behind her heart, and it was filled with frosted light and forgotten kisses. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Welcome, Lenore Hirsch. She has enjoyed 31 years as a teacher and school administrator at elementary and middle schools. Her books include My Leash on Life, Foxy's View of the World from a Foot Off the Ground, a collection of poetry, leavings, and laugh and live, advice for aging boomers, humorous essays about aging. Visit www.lenorehirsch.com. Lenore will read a passage from her new fiction titled Schooled: Confessions of a Rookie Vice Principal. Welcome, Lenore.
Thank you.
All right, there she is.
Okay. So I think I've found a selection that includes both the humorous and serious parts of this novel. And this is from the chapter called Picture Day. Darlene Glass has come to school in a party dress, which should make a nice photo. She sits at a picnic table with a couple of girls, surrounded by a group of standing boys. One boy laughs hard and then teases, "Ooh, Darlene, you look so gorgeous, like a 5-year-old." Darlene brushes something off her skirt. The boys are spitting sunflower seed shells at her. Her face is blanched and tight. A girl at the table yells at the boys, "Back off, douchebags." "All right, guys," I say, "unless you're looking to spend time in detention, go somewhere else. And ladies, watch the language." Darlene looks up at me, tears in her eyes. "Mom will kill me if my dress is dirty." Something about the way she says the words suggests they're not a euphemism. Her eyes have a pleading quality. "Darlene, why don't you go wait for me at my office so we can talk, okay?" She nods, gathers her lunch things, and moves slowly in that direction. When lunch ends, I'm ready to question Darlene. "What's going on at home?" I ask, settling into the chair next to her. Her tears flow again, and I put my arm around her. "My mom, she gets so angry at every little thing." "Like what?" "Well, if I don't wash the dishes right after dinner, she threatens to whoop me." "And does she whoop you?" "Sometimes." "And how does she do that?" "With an old belt that Dad left." "And where on your body does she hit you with the belt?" Darlene sobs. I give her a sideways hug. "It's okay, Darlene. I just want to help." "Will you tell Mom I told you?" "I won't tell her, but I have to call Children's Protective Services. They'll probably contact your mom, but they know how to do that so she won't hit you again." The crying continues quietly. She whoops me on my back. Darlene is too upset to go back to class, so I let her sit with a book in the outer office while I call CPS. Here I go again. Soon they'll know me by my first name. At their direction, I call the police. The switchboard tells me they'll send a youth officer before the end of the day. In the meantime, I have one more picture day nightmare to get through, the 8th grade photo. The teachers have cooked up the idea of having a middle fold spread in the yearbook of all 189 8th graders. We can sell prints to make extra money. The photographer has set up risers on the field so that we can have 3 or 4 rows of kids standing in the picture. At 2 o'clock, I make the announcement. All 8th grade classes, please come out onto the baseball field. The teachers try to keep their groups together, but the noise level is off the charts. Kids stand in clusters, moving around, as this age group always does. No quiet waiting in line for them. Using my trusty megaphone, I ask each homeroom group to come forward as soon as the photographer is ready to place them on the risers. "Mr. Sheldon's homeroom, you're next," I shout. They move like turtles. The boys elbow each other, the girls smooth their hair. The photographer calmly separates each group by height and tells them where to stand or sit. "Tall boys over here. You guys come up front." The din of 8th graders who think they're ready for high school is alarming. "Yo, Joey, nice shirt." "Don't push me." We finally have all the kids on the risers, but they're facing different directions, talking and laughing. "Hey, 8th grade," I yell through the megaphone. No change. "8th graders, we need you to stop talking and look at the camera." The short kids in the front row are now looking at me. The ones in the back are still punching each other and talking. I'm waiting for someone to fall off a riser. I've had it. What a day. I scream into the megaphone, "Shut up. Silence happens, but I'd better take advantage of it quickly. Thank you. Now please listen to the photographer and remember, if you make any funny finger gestures, you'll be erased from the picture. The photographer knows how to handle kids. He takes many shots, including a couple where he says, "Let's see your grumpy look," and "How will you look on the last day of school?" At last, the teachers lead them back to class and I return to the office. Gabby has the phone to her ear, but motions for me to wait. "Officer Keaton is on her way," she says, a woman. There are only 20 minutes left until the end of the school day. "How do you get home, Darlene?" I ask. She straightens up in the chair, but looks at me with brows knit, eyes searching. "My mom picks me up." If you want to know what happens when the mother shows up, or if you want to know about the obnoxious boss or romance with a history teacher, you'll have to buy the book. And I'll put the Amazon link in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a terrific glimpse into the life of a vice principal. Two different events. Welcome, Robbi Summers Bryant. Her award-winning books include a novella, 7 novels, 5 story collections, and 1 book of poetry. She has published in Reader's Digest, Red Book, Penthouse, college textbooks, and anthology. Robbi's work was optioned for TV's Movie of the Week. She also appeared on TV's Jane Whitney show. Congratulations on those, Robbi. Robbi is also an editor. You can visit her at www.robbibryant.com. And Robbi is past president of Redwood Writers. Robbi will read from her latest horror suspense, The Darkness.
Everybody, I've read this before, but since there's a lot of new people that I haven't met, I'm going to read this section again because I think it's a good representation of the book. Thunder slammed and lightning broke the sky. Edward Olson glanced at the flash that lit up the closed wood blinds. Without a word, he sighed. He wasn't in the mood to dump a body by the river, not in the pouring rain. But the urge to strangle Cynthia Langford wouldn't let go. Edward tried to resist, he really did. He glanced at Cynthia, who sat next to him on the couch like a doe-eyed deer. Couldn't he have an occasional date without the pressure to kill? But the darkness, an entity only Edward could see, had its own agenda. The creature perched on top of the coat rack, head hung low, shoulders hunched. As if it were all a game, the beast click-clacked, its upper and lower beak, click-clack, click-clack. With a lift, it flapped its spiked wings, whooshed across the room, and landed on Edward's shoulder. Edward glanced at his shadowy nemesis, a foot-tall creature with beak, talons, and bat-shaped wings that could spread double its size when the damn thing flew, looking more like a thorn-covered pterodactyl than a large bird. Its teeth, sharp as broken glass and vampiric, created a sense of desperate evil. Click-clack, click-clack, click-clack. The non-stop noise grated Edward's nerves, causing a hard tension to coil through him. He felt wound up and ready to pounce, and the darkness wouldn't shut up, always pushing Edward into a rage. If only the creature would disappear. He often daydreamed of living in a world unhampered by the monstrosity and its cravings. He tried to imagine himself with problems like a bad job, a broken down car, or a steep mortgage, but his fraternity in life had members like Theodore Ted Bundy, son of Sam David Berkowitz, and bind, kill, torture, murderer Dennis Rader, all plagued by entities that forced them to kill. Click-clack. Edward's jaw clenched and he swiped at the creature on his shoulder. The darkness squawked, zoomed across the room, and landed on the other shoulder, its talons sunk deep. As if it had a mind of its own, Edward's heel pumped up and down. His head pounded, "Leave me alone." Edward thought. The words whizzed in his mind like a violent hurricane. The intensity of his need gnawed at him until he had no choice. Edward glanced at Cynthia and muttered, "Can you excuse me a sec?" "Sure, Daw." Cynthia kissed his cheek. "Hurry back," she cooed. "I miss you already." She batted her hooded eyes. "Kill her," the darkness insisted, and leaped up on the coat rack. Edward peered at the malicious creature as it snapped its beak open and shut, escalating, becoming harsher, louder. Each click and clack taunted him. He felt as if a torture device was stretching his skin. At one time, Edward thought he would get used to the click-clacking, but that never happened. The repetitive sound fucked with him like a hungry mosquito serenaded an ear until it drove him into a rage. Edward curled his hands into a fist, dug his nails into his palms, and sprang from the couch. As he barged towards the kitchen, he focused on maintaining control. Just get me to the kitchen before I snap. But the ruthless shadow was already in the kitchen, waiting, click-clacking. The beast snorted and ground its jagged teeth together, the crunch on bone, hideous. Trying to get ahead of the terrible compulsion, Edward grabbed a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue and gulped a shot. Sometimes it cooled it down, but not tonight. A zap of recklessness jolted through him. Edward paced, another shot, and the click-clacking, the racket infuriated him. He needed a break. "What should we watch?" Cynthia called from the screening room. Edward had planned a quiet night, pizza and a movie, until the darkness opened its cruel beak. And now, not even allowing Edward a chance to choose a film, the entity put him to the test. Click-clack, click-clack. Am I over?
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry.
Check out the book.
That's the worst part of my job. Besides, you were scaring me to death.
Oh, sorry.
Very talented at doing that. Welcome, Joan Preblish. She has been writing steadily since her retirement from language teaching in 2010. Having lived in post-war Germany and Vietnam-era Japan, she has maintained a lifelong interest in other cultures that is reflected in her novels and short stories. Joan will read a passage from her fiction titled "Some Men Must Live."
Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending. My novel, Some Men Must Live, is the sequel to this one, Many Men, what's the wrong way up? Okay, Many Men Must Die, which is both of them are available at Copperfield bookstore. But this is the story of Michael Paxton, a young Australian soldier who survives the Burma-Thai Railroad as a POW of the Japanese. Now this story, Some Men Must Live, picks up the story when Paxton returns home after the war to face new challenges in Australia. In the scene that I'm going to read to you, Michael and his wife, Caroline, have been invited to her sister's engagement party after a long estrangement from her family. Michael Paxton very definitely knows he's the persona non grata at the event. Adam's uncle was on his right. The man, except for the beard, looked like his brother. "You're Caroline's husband," he stated. "They told me you're a newspaper man." "That's right, Sydney Times. I just finished my first week." "I take the Morning Herald. The Sydney Times was big in the 30s. I hear it's struggling. Is that right?" "Well, there has been a change in management. To be honest, I don't know all the facts yet." The man laughed, showing some ugly yellow teeth. I reckon you'll know them soon enough when you can't get your paycheck. He pointed to the top of the table with his chin. You won't have to worry about starving with Mr. Winthorpe looking after you. Yeah, I hear he's a real saint. The uncle, after emitting a ho-ho, said, I wouldn't go that far, and attended to a salad. While his fellow diners were chatting amiably, enjoying the abundant rich food and wine, all he wanted was to go home. He raised his glass for more wine, and after taking a few sips, surreptitiously lifted his shirt cup to peek at his watch. He groaned inwardly, another 2 hours to go before they could decently leave. He caught his wife's eyes across the table and mouthed the word home to her. She smiled and shook her head. Caroline was evidently enjoying herself in her former milieu. He suddenly felt sorry for her sister, overshadowed as she was by her bright and beautiful older sibling. He looked at Adam, evidently Mr. Winthorpe's right-hand man, who seemed somewhat menacing as a spouse to such a young, inexperienced girl, barely out of high school. What was the hurry? Unless, no, it couldn't be that. Caroline was the cautionary tale of what happened to young women when they strayed from the path of virtue. They ended up with someone like him, tall poppies, all of them. The uncle tapped him on the hand with his dessert spoon. Adam's mother is speaking to you. He shook the cobwebs from his mind. The woman, thin and pale, wearing a glittering necklace, was smiling condescendingly at him, waiting for an answer to a question that he had not heard. Sorry? I said that I heard that you served in the army, like our Adam. They made him a captain, even without a college degree. He worked with MacArthur, you know, helped the Yanks with resources and such, and received ever so many awards. What did you do, if I may ask? He smiled. Nothing much to speak of. I was in railroad construction. Oh, I see. Well, every bit helped, didn't it? Adam's service in the war is what got him connected with Mr. Winthorpe. Our Adam's a whiz with numbers, always has been. It's all worked out beautifully, hasn't it? Mike thought of another person, also a whiz with numbers, was now sitting in jail. I reckon it has for some people. Well, now that the ghastly war is over, we can all look forward to a bright future, just like Mr. Winthorpe said. We all want that, Mike answered, thinking what a poor old thing she was, probably dominated right and left by the males in her family and had lost the ability to think for herself. He played the sounding board while she carried on about our Adam and all his great accomplishments in winning the war, as well as his hopes for the future with his new alliance. The Winthorpes were such fine people, and their daughters such a credit to them. And his little daughter was so adorable, she could only hope that her own son's children would turn out as well, etc., and etc. He nodded while she blathered on until the fruit and cheese plates were served, whereupon she stopped talking to praise the food as if she'd been dining on the first time on nectar and honey. He was thoroughly sick of her talking and had to restrain himself from drumming his fingers on the table. Meanwhile, the girls on his left had settled into a kind of post-alcoholic torpor and were quietly leaning on each other. If it hadn't been for the company, he would have enjoyed the meal. Mike was relieved when they were finally dismissed, the men to the smoking room and the women to the drawing room, for a brief interlude until the table was cleared and the cake set up in the dining room for the pair's engagement hurrah. After that, they could finally go home. He eased up his cuff to glance at his watch again. Barring any unforeseen circumstance, they could be home before midnight. Thank you.
Thank you. Great descriptions.
Joan, you can stop the video.
Yeah. Welcome, Rebecca Rosenberg. She is a champagne historian, tour guide, and champagne cocktail creator for Breathless Wines. Her other award-winning novels include The Secret Life of Mrs. London, Gold Digger, The Remarkable Baby Doe Tabor, and the nonfiction Lavender Fields of America. You can follow Rebecca at www.rebeccarosenberg.com or Facebook at Rebecca Rosenberg Novels. Rebecca will read a short piece from her historical fiction, Champagne Widows.
Hey, everybody. Nice to see you this afternoon, and cheers. Now, I'm not really drinking champagne, but I had to have a little glass here. So I am reading from Champagne Widows, and Champagne Widows is about the real first woman who ever made champagne in 1800, and that is Veuve Clicquot, if you've ever seen this beautiful orange bottle in restaurants. So Veuve Clicquot, in her 20s, battled pandemics, mental illness, sexist laws against women owning businesses, and Napoleon himself to forge her champagne empire. And when I found out her story, I just couldn't leave it alone. And it starts a series of books about the women who really made champagne a worldwide phenomenon. So this is from the beginning of the book. What exactly does Grandmere have in mind for bringing me down here in the craters? The Romans excavated these chalk quarries 1,000 years ago, creating an underground web of caves. The lantern throws a halo on a grape cluster laying on a rough-hewn table. Ah, she wants to play her sniffing game. How did you set this up, Grandmere? My toes recoil in the cold puddles of spring water. I'm not dead yet, Grandmere croaks. Taking off her fringed bed shawl, she ties it like a blindfold over my eyes. Don't peek, I wouldn't dare. I lift a corner of the shawl and she wraps my fingers like the nuns at St. Pierre-les-Dames. Quit lollygagging and breathe deep. Grandmere's knobby fingertips knee below my cheekbones, opening up my nasal passages to the mineral smell of chalk, pristine groundwater, oak barrels, and the purple aroma of fermenting wine. Grandmere places a bunch of grapes in my hands and brings it to my nose. What comes to you? Well, the grapes smell like ripening pears and a hint of hawthorn berry. She chortles and replaces the grapes with another bunch. And what about these? Drawing the aroma to the top of my palate, I picture gypsies around a campfire, smoky, deep, and complex. Grilled toast and coffee? Her next handful of grapes are sticky and soft, the aroma so robust and delicious, my tongue longs for a taste. Smells like chocolate-covered cherries. Grandmere wheezes with a rasp and a rattle that scares me. I yank off the blindfold. Grandmere? You're ready. She slides a wooden box carved with vineyards and women carrying baskets of grapes on their heads. Open it. Inside lays a gold taste-a-bin, a wine tasting cup on a long, heavy chain. Your great-grandpère used this cup to taste wine with the monks at the abbey. Just by smelling the grapes, he could tell you the slope of the hill on which they grew, the exposure to the sun, the minerals in the soil. She closes her papery eyelids and inhales. He lifted his nose to the west and smelled the ocean. He smelled German bratwurst to the northeast. To the south, the perfume of lavender fields in Provence. Your grandpère was a le nez, the nose. He passed this precious gift down to you. You are le nez, Barbara Nicole. She lifts the chain over my head and the cup nestles above my breast. You must carry on your grandpère's gift. Why haven't you told me about this until now? Your mama forbid it, she wags her finger, but I am taking matters into my own hands before I die. Holding her head, Grandmere keens incoherently. The lantern casts a monstrous shadow on the Crier wall. Her tasting game has become a nightmare. Let's get you back to your room. I try to walk her to the stairs, but her legs give out. Lifting her bird-like body in my arms, I carry her as she carried me as a child, trying not to topple over into the Crier. Promise me you'll carry on Lenore, she says, smelling of fur coffins. My dear Grandmere is dying in my arms. Now I know Lene is a curse. Promise me, I won't let you down, Grandmère, I whispered. She feels suddenly light in my arms, but the gold Testament feels heavy, so heavy around my neck.
Well, I have to confess, I've read the book. I love it. And it is so original because of Lene, the nose. She has smell on almost every page, and it's very intriguing.
Thank you, Jeanne.
Welcome, Karen Misuraca, who grew up in Sonoma County. She is an award-winning travel journalist and guidebook author. She writes quirky curiosities of the state for magazines, newspapers, and online media. She is a specialist in international golf travel. Karen will reveal a few places to visit in Sonoma County from her newest book, which is nonfiction, Secret Sonoma, a guide to the weird, wonderful, and obscure.
Hi, everyone. Even if you were born and raised in Sonoma County, you're going to make new discoveries of people, places, and oddball things to do in my new book, Secret Sonoma. For instance, I bet you didn't know that a yacht race takes place every year in Glen Ellen. Just down the hill from Jack London State Park, Sonoma Creek rambles merrily along beneath a canopy of oak trees. Some of the more eccentric of local London aficionados assemble here each spring to pay homage to the iconic adventurer novelist with an annual Jack-to-Jack race on the fast-moving waters of the creek. This year, the race will be Saturday, March 26th, and you're invited. Just for the Jack-to-Jack every year, model boats are handcrafted out of wood from redwood trees rescued from the catastrophic fires here in 2017. These charming little yachts are 18-inch long replicas of London's ocean-going vessel, the Snark, on which he and his wife, Charmian, set sail from Oakland in 1907 on a voyage to the South Pacific. History lovers, merrymakers, and fundraisers for local charities, members of the Jack London Yacht Club, based the race at the circa 1905 Jack London Lodge Saloon, from where they launched their flotilla of sailboats on a 0.7-mile course down the creek from the lodge to Jack London Village. Cameras are placed along the banks of the creek, and GPS is installed in each boat, allowing spectators to watch the race live at the lodge or at home. You can also climb aboard the rollicking wine trolley that trundles up and down the race course. Volunteer firefighters pitch in to release and catch the boats while helping to resolve squabbles at the finish line. Several 30-minute heats take place during the day, and race winners gather at the saloon to be draped in Hawaiian legs in remembrance of London's arrival in Hawaii on the Snark. Live music and food, wine, and brews turn the race into a party long into the evening on the creekside patio. At a later date, the beautiful yachts are auctioned off at a gala fundraising dinner, which in the past has benefited Pets Lifeline, the Sonoma Ecology Center, and the local firefighters. Any time of year, as Jack London once did, you can belly up to the antique oak bar at the Jack London Lodge Saloon, watch sports on TV, play pool, and enjoy local wines and hearty pub grub. And if you find yourselves just up the road at Jack London Village, don't miss the hidden hallway of history that was beautifully created by the Glen Ellen Historical Society. Vintage photos, documents, and memorabilia showcase the area's early winemaking and the romantic lives of London and his wife. The huge wooden water wheel here remains from the Redwood log sawmill built on the creek in 1829. It was converted into a grist mill, and near the water wheel, you'll see the original millstones that were shipped around the Horn from France. The mill became a stagecoach stop, later a winery and a distillery that operated right through the Prohibition. Eventually, it was a roadhouse where Jack London often rode his horse down from the ranch and swigged a few with his poker-playing buddies. Check out the guidebook, Secret to Sonoma, to find out about 80 more hidden gems among the glories of Sonoma County. Thank you.
Thank you. Pretty exciting for us who live here. Welcome, Kathy Guthormsen. Her writing has been published in many of the Right Spot books. Her story, Come Calls the Demon, won the Petaluma Argus Courier's Halloween Story contest in October 2021. She will read us a part in her illustrated children's fiction, The Story of Jazz and Vihar.
Thank you very much. I'm really thrilled to be here. And I will show you the story of Jazz and Vihar. I'll show you the back as well. The illustrations in this book are absolutely stunning. Karen Phillips, who did them for me, is an amazing artist. The book is a combination of a fictionalized story of real birds, whom I know and work with every week, and bird facts and sidebars. So it is an educational book as well as hopefully entertaining. I'll show you a few of the illustrations as I read. My name is Poe, and I'm a common raven. I live at the Bird Rescue Center. All of the birds who live here have injuries that make it impossible for us to live as wild birds. We can't live in the wild, but we can teach people how important it is to protect us and our habitats. When humans aren't looking, I write stories about the birds who live here. Poe and other ravens are members of the corvid family, along with crows, jays, and magpies. Ravens are larger than crows and are very intelligent. Ravens like to live in rural areas, not in cities or towns. One sunny afternoon, Jazz, Vihar, and I were in the meadow with our handlers. Jazz and Vihar are great horned owls. I remember when you two came to live here. You were always hooting at each other. Tell me your story so I can write it down to help humans learn more about great horned owls, I said. I was out of the nest first, so I should tell our story, Vihar said. No, I should. Jazz flattened her ear tufts and hooted. You were only out of the nest first because you fell. And the sidebar says, Jazz, Vihar, and other owls are raptors. Raptors are birds of prey, which means they hunt animals for their food. All raptors have keen eyesight, hooked beaks, and most of them have extraordinarily strong feet with long talons. I wanted to fly, so I jumped up and opened my wings. Then a gust of wind caught me, Vihar said. Our parents were out hunting rabbits for our dinner, so we were by ourselves in our nest. I flapped and flapped my wings, but I couldn't get back, Vihar continued. I landed on the ground at the base of our tree. Our parents flew back and saw me sitting on the ground. They stayed nearby, telling me to fly to the nest, but it was too hard. After a while, I got really tired and stopped trying to fly. Our parents flew back with Jazz's dinner, and I was all alone. I was cold and hungry. It was starting to get dark. when a human walked down the path by my tree. She saw me on the ground. I was afraid because I'd never been this close to a human before. "Oh, baby owl," the human said, "are you lost? Where are your parents?" She looked up at the tree, but didn't see my parents or the nest. The human went away and came back a little while later with some chicken. I was hungry, so I gobbled it up. Gobbleed, I wrote. "Did the chicken taste good?" Vihar said, "Well, I wanted a mouse or a squirrel, but I ate the chicken. After a few days, I expected the human to take care of me and bring me food. I chased her when she was late bringing my lunch. I started to forget I was a wild owl." When Vihar didn't come back, I went to look for her, Jazz said, jumping from foot to foot on her perch. I got lost and couldn't find my way back to our nest. Jazz's ear tufts drooped. Different humans found me and gave me food. Vihar and I never learned how to hunt or identify danger, so we can't live in the wild. When the humans who fed me realized they couldn't care for a wild owl like a pet, they contacted the Bird Rescue Center, which arranged to bring me here, Vihar added. I came first, and then Jazz came a few weeks later. I was so happy to see Vihar again, Jazz said. We liked living at the Bird Rescue Center, she added, flying around her muse. She perched and looked outside through the slats in her walls. "Oh, put your paper away. The handlers are coming with our dinner. Yum, mice." I quickly buried my paper, ink, and quill and climbed up on my perch to wait for dinner. Should I write that humans probably think mice are disgusting to eat, but owls like them, I asked. Sure, Jazz said. And write that we go to fairs with our handlers and help them educate humans about how important it is to take care of our habitat. Humans love to look at us. I show them how far I can turn my head to see behind me. And sometimes Vihar and I hoot to each other so humans can hear what we sound like.
I think we're out of time.
Okay, and that was at the end anyway.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Thank you.
You're very talented at writing the story, and the illustrations, you were very fortunate, but you did a lot of the work. Thank you. Welcome, Steve Trenam. He teaches poetry writing for Santa Rosa Junior College. As a poet, Steve is neither sure-footed nor clear. Metaphorically speaking, Steve is out on a leafless limb with just spider webs and moss, listening to the silken slip of water over stone. I got to read his poem. He has written pandemic puzzle poems and canyon, river, stone, and light. Steve will read a few poems from his book titled An Affront to Gravity.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeane. 4 poems in 5 minutes. The first of which is Seams, spelled S-E-A-M-S. In my truculent youth, I would take my radiant body outside to steam against the frigid moonlight before going back into her bed once more. That road is now taken by the adolescent jogs of younger men, and I am off the beaten path that rambles on without me. I no longer seek to shock the cold night air. I now slip into the warm embrace of your comforter to sample your lovely bones with a more focused, gentler touch. You fashion from falling leaves the autumn fabric of my being. You do not sew hastily. You work my ragged, rough-hewn edges until my seams lie gracefully over your supple length and breadth. You are even more inviting than the bowl of ripe plums perched on the windowsill, scenting the morning air. I do my very best to lead you astray. My hand goes gently there. The tips of my fingers chasse down the small of your back, over its scar-sown hollow, transforming that soft, pliant surface into an invitation to dance. Thank you. Let's, after Partho Sereno, let's hang sheets of rain on a clothesline, dangle lavender bundles from curtain rods, carry bars of soap in our pockets to scrub the stricken air. Let's pull up weeds and plant them in places they won't recognize. Bring hummingbirds inside to hover in our living rooms. Let beetles burrow through memories to get to the bottom of things. Our minds are too much on hold. Let's free them to slip by that ominous cloud and patchwork a quilt of front porch stories that make no sense to the fearful heart. Thank you again. Leap of faith. I take my daughter to the ballet studio at a former convent in Marin. She will be dancing for hours. At the edge of the church's property is an old gymnasium. I ascend the stairs and find the door unlocked. The gym is empty. Through a long expanse of windows, improvisational sunlight flows, dust particle adagios in the slipstream. I can almost hear a love supreme in the sonorous morning air. Two small birds enter through a broken window and sing their way up to a nest in the rafters, riffing on a Coltrane refrain. I notice a rack of balls at the far end of the court and start shooting free throws, expand to 20-footers, and finally the fantasy of a half-court shot. Reminded of my distant past, scrimmaging the Warriors, Rick Barry in his prime, driving the baseline, gliding like my daughter as she glissades across her floor, effortless and magical. I retire to the stands to reflect on my spent youth, my daughter making music visible, her grand jetés higher than I could ever leap, even in my heyday. My reflective soul resides in this dusty relic of a building, playing court to my form of ballet, as close as I will ever come to a place of worship. Thank you again. And my last poem is titled, Shoot First. He's a 12-year-old boy having fun. It has gone exactly as he planned. On the ground where he stands is a gun, and there's a bird in the palm of his hand. It has not been his day in the sun. Thank you very much, and back to Jeanne.
Well, thank you. It was very easy to visualize all your poems. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Karl Kadie. He is the author of 2 books of poetry, The Burning House and Singing with Storm. His work has been published in Train River, 2021 Redwood Writers Anthologies, Beyond Distance and Remember When, the Santa Clara Review, the New Verse News, and Haiku Headlines. Karl will share with us a few poems from his book, Revenge of Nature.
Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be launching my latest book, Revenge of Nature, which is a book of poems around the theme of human incursion on the planet. In particular, climate change and the blowback from climate change. And as we all know, the first step in addressing climate change is to get people's attention. And the best way to hold their attention is through personal experience. And as it turns out, poetry does this quite well. And the first poem I'm going to read is called Wildfire Fallout. And it's something we know a lot about in Sonoma County. After the fires began, a red moon, cradled by white cirrus clouds, was pasted onto the blue sky, a vision worthy of a Magritte painting. Over the next few days, an orange sun burst through the clouds, rimmed by a fiery red border, like a ribbon tied on a present from the enemy. Yesterday, morning never came. The sky pressed down, heavy with charcoal clouds, while the streetlights, sporting savvy light sensors that switch off in daylight, just stayed on and on. Improper globes that help you find the car in the driveway. I stayed indoors, knowing each moment outside requires a little breath of death. It was a day without darkness or light. Nature's report on wildfire fallout, delivered before darkness blankets all. In the days to come, I expect the smoke to clear, a red sun and orange moon to fight for dominance in the morning sky, and the sun to grow from a red drop in a cloudy ocean to a burning meteor of climate change, hurtling our direction. The second poem I'm going to read is called The Boat. And you'll note the situation as being very familiar to us who live near the coast. The boat. When you become a small gray dot, drifting so far that to the fishing trawler, you become a discarded milk jug. To the idle pedestrian on shore, you're a speck on a distant wave, or a small diffusion of light. Isn't it time to abandon the boat? Water leaks into the boat like rising wraiths mocking life. The boat creaks, descending towards submergence. Intoxicated with chill, you're driven farther from the warm, foot-safe beach. Yet, you can still smell the trawler's smoke, still hear the shorebirds' caws, still see the retreating shore. Drawn to the mysteries of the ceaseless tides, you waif between denial and destiny. If you were to dive into the cold waters, clutch your life vest like a prayer, and wave your flashlight like a foreign moon, you might gain a survivor's grip on the trawler and be retrieved before it hauls in the nets and motors to shore. Isn't it time to abandon the boat? Thank you very much.
Excellent visuals. Thank you. Welcome, Nancy Cavers. Let me get this right. Daugherty. She is the author of 3 chat books, Tape Recorder On, Memory in Salt, and Levittown, as well as the collaborative work Silk. Her poetry has appeared in many journals and anthologies, including Westview, The Pinch, California Quarterly, West Marin Review. Nancy will share a few poems from Heaven is in Truckee.
Thank you, Jeannie. And I want to thank Redwood Writers for this lovely event. I'm just so happy to be a part of it this year. I'll start with the poem Little League Plays. Staccato sounds of cleats over the pavement, sun beating down on sleeveless arms, aluminum bleachers. Foul ball, umpire calls, and more crunch of cleats, slosh of ice in a styrofoam cup. One out, strike. Let's go, kid. Mother's talk of the snack bar. Its hot dog rack never cleaned. Oh, gross. The owner won't sanitize. Good eye, kid. He's a piece of work. The owner, strike. Hey, kid, what do you say? All right. Leather smack of ball, clapping hands. Shadows hit. My next poem is called Inversion. That there is Thule fog across the fields, most winter dawns, binds to the grass, trunks of trees, late blooms of roses, orange perennials, vehicles flash past, last vestige of color, grayed over to almost nothing perceptible. Just a last trace of living plant matter, greenery holding on to ravaged dirt and things like fences and roadways with trucks, commuters. This ancient rite of movement propels us forth and over rock and lava, over graves and mislaid tools, dusty ledgers and records. Let's see. Over graves and mislaid tools, dusty ledgers and records of past harvests and seasons, crops of another day, before fossil fuels and big-wheeled tractors and wineries dotting the hillocks, that the life of cows moves over to the next pasture, ranchers and cowboys too, their shadows across the fields, most winter dawns. And this next poem is called Sour Morning Dream. Blame it on the cow, bellowing to his moon, long in descent, to awaken, to find myself coiled in bovine belly, the fear and trembling, rattled in moos and blackberry grunts as we wander over a hillside in disguise, wrong side of the pasture. Darwin got it mixed up of his origins, bees and neighbors, of happiness coming, rustling my way. This lurching towards sunup, in search of an opening through Thule fog, in search of you, bathed in sunlight, for your hand, kind eye, a stroke of reassurance, out of this imbroglio of mine. And that's it. And you'll have to buy the book to learn about heaven, the poem Heaven is in Truckee, where that appears. So, thank you so much.
Put it in the chat too.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and very lovely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So our last author is going to read. Richard Boyd is an emeritus. Emeritus. Emeritus, yes. I even phonetically wrote it down. Professor in physics and astronomy from Ohio State University. He has authored over 250 articles on experimental and theoretical nuclear physics, astrophysics, and astrobiology. His recent fiction books include Prairie Renaissance and Artificial Intelligence, Mankind at the Brink. Richard will read us a passage from his latest book, Irradiated, An Alien Perspective.
Well, thanks to Jeanne and to the other folks who were involved in setting this up. Certainly a marvelous event. In writing Irradiated, An Alien Perspective, I hope to alert readers to the dangers of Wi-Fi and the electromagnetic soup in which we all live, and to suggest a few mitigations as well. That humans, probably including all of you, are so addicted to their smartphones and other electronic toys, I wasn't sure I could find one that wasn't conflicted. So I invented an alien. Her name is Sylvie Sensei. She arrives in New York in 2023. The story is obviously fictional, but the science in the book is factual. After Sylvie becomes aware of the problem and does her homework, she writes a letter to the Federal Communications Commission, which I note is about as conflicted as you can get. I'll read part of that letter. Dear FCC Commissioners, as you know, aliens from the planet Kamator, of which I am one, recently landed on Earth. We came from many different walks of life. My area of expertise is genetic research. Our civilization has been evolving 200,000 years longer than that of Earthlings, so has had many more generations to acquire knowledge. Thus, our expertise in areas such as genetics has advanced well beyond that of Earthling scientists. Thinking it might be useful for me to continue my research once I got to Earth, I brought the essentials of my genetics laboratory with me. I've collected thousands of samples of Earthling hair, from which I've deduced many basic features of Earthling DNA. Remarkably, there are many more similarities between Earthling and Kamatorian DNA than differences, which might explain why we look so much alike. In my studies, I also look for correlations between the capabilities of Earthling brains and the susceptibility of their organs to diseases such as heart attacks, various cancers, diabetes, and so forth, as well as the ability to procreate. And I found that those with the highest sensitivity to radio frequency electromagnetic radiation, that is RFR, were also those with the strongest correlations to most of the aforementioned medical problems. I learned that Earthling death rates from these diseases have been increasing sharply in recent years, especially in the cities, and urban birth rates have been dropping. So I decided to see if there were concomitant increases in the amount of RFR. I was stunned to learn that there has been a huge increase in the RFR to which Earthlings are exposed just in the past few years, especially at 5G frequencies. Your group authorized the communications industry to vastly increase the number of wireless transmission facilities and communication satellites, as well as the intensity of the radiation the facilities can emit. This has spread RFR around the Earth and has increased its intensity in most places. Despite thousands, and I believe your conclusions, certainly by large factors in the city. The reasons for which these increases were authorized may well have been noble, but with all due respect, I believe your conclusions were based on faulty logic and highly selective data. You continue to insist that there is no evidence of medical issues from RFR, despite thousands of studies that conclude the exact opposite. You've long claimed that the only relevant medical effects of RFR were temperature rise in exposed tissue, but most medical research studies have found much more complex things than a simple temperature rise. Well, there's a lot more criticism of the FCC, but the book also has some personal aspects. The aliens look about the same as Earthlings, which I know is not as improbable as you might think, except that they're slightly green. That doesn't bother Rob, one of the members of the FCC, so he and Sylvie become friends. However, her efforts to minimize the electromagnetic soup provoke some nasty enemies, and there are several attempts on her life. So she decides to move from New York to Paris. She quickly places a call Rob, I'm going to take an extended visit to France. Do you remember me talking about Francois, the Camatorian representative to Paris? He's invited me there so I can address the French about hazards of RFR. Of course, they had the situation pretty well under control. Their limits were as bad as most of the rest of Europe until they lowered them in 2022. But I'll be grateful for a change of scene, and perhaps that'll cool off the people who seem intent on killing me. So I'll not be in New York for a while. I'll miss seeing you. Your visits have added a wonderful dimension to my life. Rob needed no time to respond. I don't think we need to end our visits together while you're in France. You'll just have to shift to Paris. I think we'd really enjoy continuing to learn about each other in that lovely city. Then he lowered the pitch of his voice. It's supposed to be very romantic. Sylvie's expression quickly changed to a brilliant smile. Rob, I was hoping you'd raise that possibility. I'll make sure I have sufficiently spacious accommodations to house another person, you. And so they got to be very good friends. Thank you.
Excellent. I don't know how you can write humor on such a serious subject. You almost don't want to laugh, but it's funny, but sad. Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Well, that concludes our author launch. And please, authors, put where people can buy your book, the title, in the chat box. And audience, please read your author launch extravaganza, because all the book covers are there, and how you can buy their books, because this is how we show appreciation. Thank you all for coming.
Jeannie, thank you. Let's give I don't want to unmute everybody because then we're going to have to do it, but excellent, excellent reading. Seriously. From everyone there on time. You only had a couple people you had to bring the gaff out. Next year, we'll actually have a physical gaff because we'll be doing this in person. Just kidding. That's an inside joke, but I couldn't.
We're going to hire a bouncer.
She's right. Time's up. Anyway, thank you all. And we're going to transition briefly into some board member announcements as well as member announcements. And I'm going to kick it off. I don't know if is Linda behind you? Is she going to jump in and do the poetry anthology, Jeannie?
I can go get her.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and do Robin's announcement for the salon on the 26th. She is in Colorado right now, but she will be having a salon on Saturday, the 26th. Per usual, all that information is available on the website at redwoodwriters.org. Roger, do you want to give a quick announcement about membership? We did have one new member that joined today, I understand.
Yeah, actually, we now have 242 members. And if that's actually one I haven't seen, because I saw one yesterday, we could have 243. And we have 37 new members besides the 205 that renewed. So we are not only the largest branch, still, of course, in the 22 branches, but we've had an exceptional renewal and just a remarkable run of new members. And some are probably here, but if you get a chance when you read your newsletter that Chrissy puts out at the first of each month, we are featuring new members with their photos and bios. So make sure you take a look, because there's this is a really large club now, and it's a really exciting club. So if you have any problems or questions about membership, you can always email me about them. And I think that's it, Sean.
All right. Thank you, Roger. And I'm going to kind of go around since Linda's here now. We're going to go over. Linda, you want to make the announcement about the anthology?
Okay, you can talk. Hi. Hi, Sean. I'm here.
All right, go ahead. Go for it.
Oh, okay. Hi. So, so everybody, you have until February 28th. That's not a lot of time. You can send in, you can submit up to 5 poems. You go online to do it. I've been putting a little countdown sheet out for us to remind everybody. So get those poems in, and you can go to the website. It gives you all the rules and everything. And so just don't miss this opportunity to be in the 2022 Poetry Anthology. You'll be able to read at the launch, and it's just a wonderful book. And so don't let this get away from you. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Linda. And I've got
Okay.
3
Also,
done. I got to get 1 more and then I'll send them over. So,
okay. And I just wanted to say that the Writer's Circle is March 26th. I think it is March 26th. And so just send me your email if you would like to attend. I've already sent the notices out for it. Yes, March 26th at 10 o'clock. And it will be in person.
awesome. Thank you, Linda.
Okay.
I don't have anything else. Chrissy, do you want to jump in and talk about newsletter real quick, just as a reminder?
Yeah, I put it in the chat. It is deadline is already passed, but you know me, I like to have wiggle room so that all of you can get your announcements in. So if you send me your announcement at editor@redwoodwriters.org just by tomorrow evening, I'll get it into the March newsletter. So that is it.
Thank you. Thank you. And Deborah, are you still here? Do you want to get a plug for your monthly meeting on author support group, or are you not here, Deborah?
She's there. She's muted though, Sean.
Okay, I just unmuted myself.
Okay.
Thanks. We had 4 at the author support group this morning. It'd be really great. The website, people can sign up there because we're going to be on Zoom until I announce a party or something here outside when it's nice. But I need to have a little help because when they go into it, they don't know where they are. It doesn't give them any information. They just say, oh, I'm in this room. Several people said, what happened? Luckily, I got the emails. So I'm just saying it's still a little funny in terms of completing a cycle, but we are doing author support group every month.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And then for those who didn't get it, Joelle just put it in the chat. If you are, there were 3 or 4 poets here. If you haven't submitted to the anthology, please do so. The link is in chat for those who want to submit. I don't remember. I think it's $10 for all 5 pieces, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it's free to members. No, it's free, Sean.
It is free? Okay.
Yeah, it's an anthology, so it's free to the members.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's not a contest. Never mind.
Yeah, it should be.
I don't have anything else for me. Well, who else has something that they need to talk about? Judy.
I just wanted to remind the folks who are here today that in March, we have Diana Foe, and she is going to be talking about how to improve your storytelling with playwriting techniques. And I think it's going to be a great meeting. We'll let you know if she's going to be on Zoom, but We'll let you know if we're going to be on Zoom only or if we're doing a hybrid. Hopefully a hybrid, but stay tuned.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy.
As of right now, I believe since they've lifted the restrictions, we're planning on going back to hybrid. I will verify that with the Finley Center this week, and it'll be included in the March newsletter so you guys can know in advance. And Judy will adapt the invitation or sign up sheet accordingly so that there's no confusion and have people showing up when we're not going to meet in person. So the joys of juggling via Zoom and in person.
Sean, Steve has his hand up.
Go ahead, Steve. I can't see you, so go ahead.
Thank you. I'd just like to announce, since this is a room full of writers, I'm part of a group of 8 local poets called Sonoma, Poet License Sonoma. And for the last year and a half, we have had a parlay with Sebastopol Center for the Arts for poetry readings the 4th Tuesday of each month. So this coming Tuesday is the 4th Tuesday at 7 o'clock. We will be reading, the 8 of us will be reading, followed by our headliner, which will be Maya Koleslaw, former poet laureate of Sonoma County. Marvelous individual, a scientist, a conservationist, and a filmmaker. And her poetry is compelling. So it's $5. You have to register with the Art Center, who needs the money. but you can do that simply by going to Sebastopol Center for the Arts, Literary Arts, and clicking on Maya's photograph, and you'll be in. You'll get an immediate response by email to confirm it. And if you don't, something went wrong. You can contact me in that event. But the readings have been well received and worth coming to, and it's all on Zoom, so you don't have to leave your couch. So that's my announcement. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Steve. And before I forget, I want to give Marilyn's here today. For those who don't know, Marilyn is actually stepping away from her position as the speaker's chair while she's here. And for all the authors, I want to give her just a little bit of acknowledgement because she's leaving us in good hands. We have all but one date booked for this year, and that was done by pre-planning. Judy's going to pinch it in the interim, but for those who want to step up and help learn what that's about and guide our future speakers and take that role on, Marilyn's happy to assist with what that entails. Reach out to me directly, and then I'll connect you with Marilyn and or Judy and myself, and we will go from there. So Marilyn, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. If I could, I want to thank Jeanne for hosting this really great event today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you've done a great job, Jeanne, and I just want to make sure that we offer you our thanks.
And you as well, Marilyn. And you will be missed, but I know we'll still see you.
Oh yeah, for sure. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, I just have to chime in here and say one thing. It's Linda Reed. When I went to Maryland and asked her to take over the speaker chair years ago, she took it on gladly. It is a huge job and absolutely vital to our organization because it's this content of the speaker every month that is so important to all of us. And so thank you, Marilyn. You have been spectacular.
Well, thank you. I'm not good at taking kudos like that, but I do appreciate it. And it's really been my pleasure. I mean, this is a wonderful club, and I enjoyed contributing to it.
It's exciting. And for those who don't know too, we are on for having a Sonoma County Writers Conference that date. If you want to put it on your calendar, it will be in person, pending Armageddon or whatever Steve was talking or Richard was talking about. It's going to be in person. If it's not in person, we're not going to do it. It's that simple. October 8th is the date. October 8th of this year at the Finley Center, 8 to 5. We will have lined up somewhere between 12 and probably 14 or 15, maybe 16 speakers / workshops. I've had several people already confirm that they want to do it, and we'll follow through in the months ahead. So thank you all. Anybody else? Are there any hands? Have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday. Thank you to all the authors. For those who didn't get their book published in time to meet the deadline, get it published so you can be there next year, because Jeanne's going to start taking names. Jeanne will start taking names.
I already have 2 on for next year.
Wow.
All right. We'll throw my name and Chrissy's name in the hat because ours are going to be done in the next 2, 3, 4 months. So,
well, email me.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.